The context of this riddle, this story that Sylvia read in our hearing, is a context of much movement, much moving around, much unrest. Jesus had journeyed to Jerusalem from Bethany, and he'd gotten a donkey, and he had ridden through the streets as the people poured out into the streets, crying, "Hosanna, save us!" The chief priests and the elders of the people had done some traveling too. They probably out of obligation had to go clear across town to watch Pilate parade through the streets as he did every day, showing his authority. And they were probably once again humiliated and marginalized by his very presence in the holy city on the holy ground. And so they had rushed back to the temple, and at this very minute when Jesus encounters them, they are rushing to try to entrap him in a riddle of their own, but Jesus sidesteps it, and Jesus says to them, "The baptism of John, did it come from God, or was it of human origin?" And the elders of the people and the chief priests of the temple realized they were trapped. Jesus had trapped them with their own trap, and they said, "We do not know." So having the leaders in a position to listen, Jesus spun the riddle that Sylvia read in your hearing today. The landowner asked his first son, "Go work in the vineyard today." And the son said, "No," but later changed his mind and went. The landowner went to the second son and said, "Son, go work in the vineyard today." And the second son said, "Sure, Dad." But the son never went. Then Jesus asked the leaders of the temple, which son did as his parent asked? And as Sylvia said, read in our presence, the first son, Jesus. They probably replied that thinking, Jesus, get to the point. And Jesus did. Jesus said, prostitutes and tax collectors are entering heaven ahead of you. Of you. Jesus must have wanted to add, I am one of the sons that the one who owns everything has called to work in the harvest. I am the Son of God who rules heaven and earth. But priests and elders of the people, so are you. But you are called to decide which of the two brothers in this story you are. You are called to decide how the offspring of God ought to act, how the offspring of God ought to respond to the call of God. Are you that child that is telling God anything that God wants to hear? Abba, Father, Abba, Daddy, but in the end, not doing God's bidding and doing as you yourselves please? I can't be bothered to go assemble regularly with my sisters and brothers in worship. I can't be bothered to contribute a dime to the ongoing of God's church. I can't be bothered to go to contribute towards the alleviation of suffering around the world. I can't go. I can't. Oh, you, as God's child, may not consciously think that, but lack of compassion for the world community and for Christ's church sometimes manifests in this way. And I've had this conversation with a dear sister a few years ago in this space. Oh, is that offering today? I left my checkbook at home again. I know I said that I would contribute towards ending world hunger on the first Sunday in October, but I forgot again. Would you call me and remind me again when you're collecting for that offering? And I wanted to say, sure, I'll remind you. We do it every Sunday. Or are you the other brother? Are you the other child? Exactly 100 years ago, Puerto Rico became an American protectorate and then a commonwealth. So there are Americans dying in Puerto Rico because there is scant electricity to run the ventilators or keep the machine chilled to the proper temperature or keep patients cool. There are situations of life and death like this all over the world. I know this is not new news. I know that you know that. Scientists say that larger, more destructive hurricanes are caused by the ocean waters getting warmer. And warmer oceans are a result of global warming. And one of the biggest contributors to global warming is the constant burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels such as coal, petroleum, and natural gas. These are the primary sources of fuel for generating electricity and steam and powering transportation facilities. These are the things that are causing global warming. So a great case can be made that you and I have played a part in causing these enormous natural disasters. Therefore, you and I are called to go and fix something that we had some part in causing. Now, I know for me, and I suspect for you, that there are times when you and I feel absolutely tapped out. Our pockets are empty. Our resources are stretched. We don't feel that we can do anymore. And so we close our eyes and we close our ears and we close our hearts to what the world is asking us to do. In the 6th chapter of Isaiah, Isaiah was for some reason messing around on the porch of the Holy of Holies when he looked in the Holy of Holies and saw what he was not supposed to see. Isaiah saw God in full splendor sitting upon heaven's throne with the cherubim and the seraphim, those are the little angels and the big angels, flying around the throne proclaiming, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Heaven and earth is filled with God's glory. Heaven and earth are filled with God's glory." And Isaiah despaired, saying, "I am done for. I am a mortal who has too many things wrong with me, and I live in a world full of people who are just as imperfect and just as selfish as I am, and yet I have looked upon the face of the holy. I have looked upon the face of perfection. I have looked upon the face of God. I am done with." Isaiah continues at that moment. And right while he was talking, an angel flew to him carrying a burning hot coal that was so hot it had been taken with tongs from the altar. The angel touched Isaiah's lips, saying, "Your sin is forgiven and your guilt is wiped out." And right at that second, this allegorical story from Isaiah says, Isaiah heard the voice of God saying, "Whom shall I send? Who will go?" Through the love and example and work of Jesus the Christ, our sin is forgiven and our guilt is wiped out, washed away, just as if our lips have been touched by hot tongs. You and I are the recipients of the good of God. We have health, we have family, we have means. God has touched your lips and my lips with the hot coals of good fortune and good meals and good times and good education and growing awareness and compassion. I asked a dear friend of mine over dinner, who I hadn't seen a few weeks ago, how her other daughter was doing because she wasn't there. She said, "Oh, she's away at college." And I said, "Oh, what college?" Thinking that she would say it was some state school. She said, "Vassar." We are touched by good fortune. God didn't give us these great gifts just so we could gloat about how evolved we are, how much better we are than the Democrats, how much better we are than the Republicans. Like Isaiah, our blessings from God have prepared us to see need and to go. Blessings have prepared us to go. If we play some part in all human, and if we have played some part in all human and natural challenges, do we have the luxury of just shaking our heads and walking away? We must go and listen to sound arguments, pro and con, about building a wall on one coast and ignoring the other three. We must go to a quiet place where we can examine our own cultural history and our beloved country's history and decide, are the flag and the national anthem being disrespected, or are they being honored because we feel confident protesting in front of him, knowing that the inclusive values for which they stand will, rather than be disrespected, actually be more clearly delineated. In the face of catastrophic weather, we must go to our wallets and make giving to weak of compassion and its partners a part of yours and mine, our ongoing budget. We must identify the vineyards of the world and go to them and be willing to work in them. We must go to speak to injustice, whether it is injustice across the world or injustice at our neighborhood pharmacy. And we must make a renewed effort to support our house of worship as an open and appealing space where those that others would marginalize are welcome here. Living teaches us all that vineyard work is never done, is it? Well, it never gets finished supporting a worthy cause or supporting a church that supports a worthy cause. Each worthy cause changes us and ushers us into a new reality where we can envision more and accomplish more. Full-blown spirituality comes as you and I mature and realize that getting up, turning no into yes each day, and we have to do it each day. We are on manual. And rousing ourselves to go and work in the vineyard is an ongoing way of life. We learn to be the daughter or the son, the descendant who moves quickly through all the reasons I can't do it, moves quickly through no, and following the call of God. He goes to work in the vineyard. And so we go. Let's pray. You have called us to go work in the vineyard, Lord, and we are struggling with going. You know us, God. We have at first said no, but we are working as hard as we know how to transform ourselves into that first child, that first son, who after fighting with himself and resisting your call, roused himself and got to work. Help us to see need and address it. Help us to see discomfort and be comforted. Help us to see impatience and be patient. Help us to see fear and be courage. Help us to stand in. In your loving Son's name we pray.